Greetings one and all. Super Sundays here in the holy city, in the holy land, the holy city, Elon Moreh, Shechem. Yes, our crew, they're down south doing a lot of good deeds for the Jewish people. So we're here, our new cameraman, let's give him a round of applause. Elchanan Gilboa, give him a round of applause. He has a lot of big share in the merit of these classes. So thank you very much. Okay, also a big hug we give to our sponsor, Mike, down in the south, trying to look for missing Jews. Big hug, and to all the volunteers in Mike's organization. Big hug from us. Okay, today's class, we are, forgot to say, we're on the 21st day of Cheshvan, 5784. Okay, the title of our class is Humanitarian Aids to Gaza. Once again, you heard correct. I didn't say aid to Gaza. I said AIDS. That's capital A, capital I, capital D, capital S, pun intended. Okay, let's do it. Are there innocent Arabs, innocent bystanders? Yes, we've heard this. We've heard this day and night in the media, in Israel, in other places. Does such a creature exist? Innocent bystanders. Problem today, folks, is if you come up to an average Jew, wherever it may be in the world, Israel or abroad, and you ask them, who is the enemy? Most people will tell you Hamas. Some people will tell you Hezbollah in the north of Israel, Lebanon, Iran. We're going to have to get out the gong. Remember the Gong Show? You have to be a certain age to get that one. Anyways, all answers wrong. They're an enemy, but not the enemy. Who is the real enemy? Will the real enemy or enemies stand up? The answer is Islam, Ishmael, the Arabs, their religion, their mentality, their culture, their DNA. That is the true answer. How we love to believe that if we remove X, it's clear sailing from there on. I used to love it. I would hear that Israel killed an engineer, a scientist. Oh, all our troubles are solved. Everyone has a replacement or a couple of replacements. We have to know who the enemy is. And we're playing games. Hamas is the enemy. Iran is the enemy. No. What we just said, all of that. There is our enemy. Folks, all summer camps in the PA, right? The good guys, the moderates, the ones that we resurrected in 1985, the one that we presented them 30,000 weapons in 1993. We allowed them to bring in an army. The ones that their charter speaks about the annihilation of the Jewish people, the PLO. They have summer camps all over the territories. And you know what they teach these small children and these children and teenagers? Yes, you could look it up. You could find the clips. They teach them terrorism. learning how to shoot guns, learning how to put together guns, how to take apart a gun. The next generation, terrorists. Not innocent. We could speak here all day. If we look, there are organizations that do exactly that. They investigate what type of books are the Arabs learning and being taught. Tremendous, tremendous anti-Jewish hate in their textbooks. No, they are not innocent. When a Jew is murdered, stabbed, when there is a Jewish defeat, celebrations in the streets, handing out baklav, handing out candies, and celebrations in the streets, celebrating the downfall of the Jewish people. No, these are not innocent bystanders. Arab kids in Gaza, in school, we're talking about 5 and 6-year-olds learning how to use guns. They are the next generation's terrorists, not innocent bystanders. Arab religious leaders, we spoke about this last week, how the PA gives various points, various ideas that they want the imamim, they want the religious leaders in the mosques to give over on Friday sermons, talking about eliminating, annihilating the Jewish people, pumping hate against the Jews. No, they are not innocent bystanders. Folks, we like to make life so simple and so superficial. The bad guys are the ones with covering their face, with the uniforms, with the RPGs, with the machine guns. They're the bad guys. And the rest are innocent bystanders. But folks, you want to build a corporation, there are hundreds of details that go into a corporation. There are hundreds of different jobs, occupations that you need to bring this idea into fruition. How much more so? Terrorism. The UN Secretary said a statement. I thought it was a great statement. I just took it a little bit of different direction. Terrorism does not grow in a vacuum. That is really true. Terrorism is a whole network. People that donate money, people that teach, give over the ideas, give over the hate, people that cheer them on. And the list goes on and on and on. It's not just the guy. You look at an army, you look at the IDF. IDF is just those people shooting guns and in tanks. The army has thousands and thousands of different divisions. That exactly is terrorism. Terrorism does not exist in a vacuum. It needs a population that supports. They are not innocent bystanders. Not only that, I've said this before, it boggles my mind. Think about the Arabs. The Arabs are people. Every single Arab It's not going out on a limb what I'm saying, for sure. It's certain what I'm saying. Every single Arab in Israel, wherever they might live, they know they have a friend, they have an acquaintance, they have a neighbor, they have a relative that has been arrested by Israel, that have been tortured by Israel, that have been beaten up by Israel. Forget that they deserve it. Forget what they did. In the eyes of the average Arab, every one of them knows someone, those that have been killed by Israel, those that have been maimed by Israel, crippled for life. They all know people that have lost their homes, their businesses, being closed down by Jews. If you believe that any of them love us and don't hate our guts, you're gullible. That is totally 100% understandable. They're wrong in the way that they're thinking. Israel's not treating them in such a fashion because of the fact that they're doing beautiful things. They're out for our demise. They're out for our destruction, for sure. But in their eyes, that's how they look at us. They hate our guts. They anticipate the day of our fall. No innocent bystanders here. Pharaoh was not sure how to solve the Jewish problem 3,300 plus years ago. He called his three advisors, Jethro, Eov, Job, and Bilam, and he asked them for their suggestion. What should we do to solve the Jewish problem in Egypt? Bilam got up and stood up and said, we must go out and kill them. They are a threat, a danger to the existence of Egypt. They will collaborate with other countries and they will be a fifth column. They're dangerous to keep them. They must be finished off. And then Jethro argued and he reminded them of all the good that the Jewish people for 80 years previously had done in the time of Joseph. And he was forced to flee Egypt. He was a wanted man because he spoke up in favor of the Jewish people. Job, Eov, kept quiet. He understood that if he spoke up for the people of Israel, the same result would happen to Jethro would be also his lot. So he wanted to just keep quiet. Nobody would know what he thought. Folks, an amazing thing. We could speak all day about the suffering of Job. We could read about it. What he suffered, he lost his wife. He lost his kids. Passed away. He lost all of his income. What he went through. Hell he went through. Because if you don't protest what your co-religionists are doing, Arabs, when you don't protest what your religious leaders are doing, you become a collaborator and you are not an innocent bystander. That is what we witness all over the land of Israel. Innocent Arabs, humanitarian aids AIDS? Yeah, not exactly. In Bereshit Rabbah 44:4, Abraham, after freeing his nephew Lot from captivity by the Sodomites, he became frightened, and God came to calm his nerves. And Abraham said, I'm frightened because perhaps when I went out to war against the 4 kings, and I went out to save my nephew Lot, perhaps during these battles, I killed innocent people. God said, Abraham, do not fear. All of the people that you killed are likened to irrelevant thorns. Irrelevant thorns. There is collective punishment. Shimon and Levi in the city of Shechem, right next to me. 5-10 minutes down the road, and you're there. Shimon and Levi, their sister was kidnapped in Shechem by the 1-2 not so dynamic duo of Hamor and Shechem. She was abused, she was raped. They went out and killed 24,000 people. But there were just 2 people that were participants in the kidnapping and the rape. So Maimonides asked this question in the Laws of Kings and Wars, chapter 9, Law 14. The inhabitants of Shechem, they witnessed what had happened to Dinah, the sister of Shimon and Levi, and did nothing, did not protest, did not reprimand the words of Maimonides. Amazing. You see something evil, terrible, you better stand up. Oh, but I have orders. That sounds familiar. 80 years ago in history, I had orders. Take your orders and shove them. You're held accountable. I'm afraid to speak up. According to the commentator, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, he writes another reason. Why was the entire city responsible? Wasn't this an act perpetrated by 2 people? And he goes on to say an amazing lesson. He says, they assisted in the crimes of Hamor and Shechem. They assisted. What we talked about, a network. How terrorism needs a supportive ground, soil, in order for it to blossom. Or, according to the commentator, Yikra Deoraita, page 601, on Genesis, the plan of Shimon and Levi was really to kill 2 people, Hamor and Shechem. But they realized that the inhabitants would not allow them to prosecute them. So they become partners in crime. Amazing. This is an amazing thing. They realized they only wanted to kill and prosecute the 2. But then they realized that the city of Shechem would not allow these 2 to be prosecuted. Wow. You know, you see sometimes when they're coming in different areas in Israel, sometimes to tear down a house of a terrorist, you see the entire town coming out. We're not going to let you do this. That's exactly what we're talking about. Collaborators. An amazing book, an amazing rabbi of the previous generation, Rabbi Shali Israeli. He was the head of the yeshiva of Merkaz Harav. He was a judge in a rabbinical court. He was part of the rabbinate, the chief rabbinate of Israel during his day. He has a book, a Jewish law book called Amud Yemini in chapter 16. He talks about killing, quote unquote, innocent civilians. Anyways, he brings an amazing case in a town near Ramallah, near the Benjamin area, called Kabiyah. In October 1953, terrorists from the area of Ramallah, not necessarily from Kabiyah, but around that area, infiltrated into Israel. 1953, right? We were not in Judea and Samaria. And they went to a Jewish community in Yehud, not too far away. It's south of Tel Aviv. And there, they killed 3 members of one family. They killed 3 members of one family. The military, the government got together a group of soldiers and they sent them on a mission to avenge the murder of 3 members of this family, to ensure that such an incident, such a travesty would not reoccur. Put the fear of God into these Arabs. So they went in to a town, Kabiyah, once again, was not necessarily the village that the murderers came out of. And there they killed 60 men, women, and children. 60 men, women, and children. The Prime Minister of Israel thanked all the men that participated in the mission, but he said he could not do it publicly. He could only do it privately, but it was a important job that they did. So Rabbi Israeli brings down the case of Kabiyah, and his conclusion is that it is permissible to kill so-called innocent civilians when they're part of a war against the Jewish people. It is permissive. It is permissible. Once again, he's talking about innocent civilians that are in the way to removing the evil. So they're in my way. In order to remove the evil, am I allowed to remove the innocent civilians, to kill them? Unfortunately, yes. However, here we're not talking about innocent civilians. As we've mentioned in so many classes, explaining how we're dealing with a Nazi ideology here. We're dealing with groups that in their charter, it's written black and white, the annihilation of the Jewish state. When they're crying in these demonstrations from the river to the sea, there ain't no room for the Jews from the river to the sea. That's where they envision their state, and there is no room for the Jews. Moving right along. Based on Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 10, When you draw near to a city to wage war against it, you shall call out for peace. It shall be that if it responds to you in peace and opens for you, then the entire people found within it shall be as tribute for you, and they shall serve you. But if it does not make peace with you, but makes war with you, you shall besiege it. What does it mean if they agree? Who are we talking about when they say they agree? So this is a question that's brought up by the Sifrei on this verse. And it says the following. All of the inhabitants must agree to this treaty. Once again, listen to this treaty. Treaty is, if you're in the land of Israel, there are conditions for you to live here. We don't say peace today, P-E-A-C-E. We're not talking about the concept of peace today, which means no war. We're talking about observing the 7 commandments of Noah, about being subservient to the Jewish people, about having social, personal rights, but not national, political rights. That's what we're talking about, peace. But be that as it may, the Sifrei seems to be telling us that all of the inhabitants have to agree. If all of them don't agree, then we can make war, which means it could be that some of them disagreed and we're still going out to war. So that's an amazing thing. So, 2 Rishonim, the Ralbag and Rabbeinu Hillel, and also later the Netziv, they all explain this Sifrei that if they do not all agree, we declare war on this city. Amazing. So there might be people that agree to the conditions that the Jewish people have put on the table. Doesn't matter. They all have to agree. They all have to agree. In unison, they all have to agree. Amazing. No innocent bystanders. Innocent, very interesting. In the year 2006, there were elections in Gaza. The Gazans voted for the Hamas into power. Since then, after the elections by the Gazans, they've waged 4 wars. This is the 5th now. The Shmini Atzeret War, Simchas Torah War. This is the 5th. And no one in the higher echelons of government, of power, of military, security, can say our hands did not spill this Jewish blood. Instead of ending it, being dragged out, now for 5 wars, Jewish people have been coerced to pay the price of this mercy unto the cruel. Collective punishment. In most of the Western world, collective punishment is looked down upon. No thumbs up. However, in the world of life, real life, when countries go to war, it's all about collective punishment. When they're in their suits and they're talking on a scholastic level, they're against collective punishment. However, when we look at the battles in all generations up until today, we see in their actions collective punishment. Ooh, and they have the nerve to point their finger at the Jewish people. No collective punishment. Proportional punishment allowed, only proportional punishment. So let's look Once again, this could be days we could spend on this. Just look. This is the rule of thumb. This collective punishment is the rule of thumb for all countries in all wars, except, of course, for Israel. In World War II, in Germany, the estimates are between 300 and 600,000 civilians, innocent civilians, were killed by the Americans in World War II. In Japan, also by the Americans. In World War II, 337,000 Japanese civilians were murdered. The United States, post 9/11, in countries such as Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, and Pakistan, up until September 2021, so that's 10 years, 432,093 innocent civilians killed by the Americans and their allies. The hypocrisy of the world. No collective punishment. Proportionate fighting. Last but not least on this subject, in the days of Egypt, in the times of Egypt and plagues, 10 plagues, one of the plagues were hailstones. Moses tells the Egyptian people, those that believe in God and that he will bring this plague, take your livestock, take your cattle, bring it inside, bring it into some kind of room, a barn, some enclosed structure. And there were a group of people that did just that. They believed. They are coined in the Torah, they are the God-fearers. These same God-fearers, right? They brought all their livestock underneath a roof. They were the ones that gave over to the Egyptians when the Egyptians needed to chase after the Jewish people who had left Egypt some days before. These God-fearing, quote-unquote, the good Egyptians, they provided the Egyptian army with horses in order to kill and annihilate the Jewish people. From this we learn a Jewish law that at times of war, even the best of the Gentiles, these were the God-fearers, these were the best of the Egyptians. During a time of war and battle, the best of the Gentiles to kill. What does that mean? That it means exactly when you have so-called innocent civilians. During a time of war, we ignore innocent, so-called innocent civilians. We do not take a chance. We do not risk a Jewish life. This law is brought down by the Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, in Yoredea 158. Also, he brings it down, Rav Cairo brings it down in the Code of Jewish Law. Maimonides brings it down. The Beit Chadash brings it down. The Gra, the Drisha, the Mirat Einayim. The Knesset HaGdolah summarizes in a beautiful Anchoshen Mishpat 425. Listen to these words. This is Judaism. even though a Gentile is not actively fighting against the Jewish people, because he is a part of a nation that is, we take him out. We kill him. He's part of a nation. National responsibility. Amazing. Folks, listen to this and weep. A commander of the army down south, he explained that on Shmini Atzeret, 3.5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, hundreds of Arabs without weapons poured across the fence, the wall separating us and them. And they, the army, did not fire on them because they did not have weapons. Those same people, those hundreds of people that ran into the side of Israel, participated in the murder. We won't get into the gory details. You know yourselves. We don't have to go over it. Jewish blood is on their hands, and all those responsible. We spoke some weeks ago about a top commander in one of the elite units who says, I don't believe in the Torah statement, those that come to kill you, slay them first. He doesn't believe. He's the commander of an elite group. We allowed innocent bystanders, because they didn't have a gun, instead of gunning them down. Time of war. Innocent bystanders, yes, in a time of war. That is the Jewish law. The best of the Gentiles during a time of war, kill them. Last but not least, folks, with all my heart, I turn to you, those that are watching in the world outside of Israel. What we've noticed in the past 4 weeks, we all saw the pictures in the Russian airport. Hundreds of people, maybe more, running and looking and tearing doors down, looking for Jews. Jew hunting. Scary sights. We've seen the gigantic demonstrations all over the world, in Europe, in America, in Canada, Australia, the violent demonstrations of the Muslims, of the left. Folks, this is scary. This is scary. Look at the college campuses. Jews are afraid of their lives. Understandably so. In the U.S., this appeared on October 18th, 2023, Miami Herald. I read that a poll was taken. A large portion of Americans doubt democracy and view violence as acceptable. Folks, in the last 4 weeks, a surge of close to 400% in anti-Semitic acts. in America, but this is going on all over Europe, in Germany, in England, in France, you name it. 1,000% increase in texting messages, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, against Jews, against Israel. Folks, in the year, just last year, 2022, this was the highest ever recorded since they started this recording. This was the highest ever rate of anti-Semitic incidents in the United States, beating out the previous year, 2021. That was the record year of anti-Semitic acts. 2022 even beat out 2021. In 2022, there were 3,700 incidents against Jewish people. Folks, Rabbi Kahneman, of blessed memory, he went to the Chafetz Chaim just as Hitler gained power in Germany at the beginning. And he asked his rabbi, Chafetz Chaim, what will be, Rebbe, with all this hate and all this anti-Semitism? And the Chafetz Chaim turned to him and he quoted a verse in the prophet Joel. On the mountain of Zion will be refuge for the Jewish people. That statement, that verse, when you come into the great Panovich Yeshiva in Bnei Brak, till this day, that is on the wall, that in the land, in the mountain of Zion will be refuge for the Jewish people. Folks, with all that's going on in Israel, the safest place, I feel, 100% my family and the truth, safest place to be, the only place to be, is in the land of Israel. With all our travesties, with all our tragedies, this is the only safe place for the Jewish people, the land of Israel, the holiness of this land. I'm not talking about the government. I'm not talking about all of the ruling class. I'm talking about the land of Israel, the land that God protects from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, where there's special divine providence here. Folks, when are they going to start coming after Jews? We saw them in the airport. We saw the mobs. Today, November 4th, according to the Gentiles, supposed to be the biggest demonstration ever of the Muslims, of the PLO, of the Hamas, in support of these murderers. We're not even talking about internet comments, the hate that's to be found. Folks, it's as clear as day. The time is now. Time is now to come home. Start planning. Start planning. And until that, it's important to set up patrols within Jewish communities until we're able to get out of America, get out of Europe. A wave of hatred we have never seen in the last 80 years. Folks, it is time to come home. Stay safe, keep the faith. Till next week.